We're back with another episode of Franchise My Business, the podcast for franchisors, hosted by franchisors. I'm your host, Kevin Oldham, and we are back with another phenomenal episode. We're just going to hop right in because very rarely do we see an entrepreneur go from opening their doors to franchising within 6 to 7 months. And this is going to be fire because I can't wait to hear what this journey is all about. A business deliberately built with franchising as part of the DNA of the business model. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Jessica Yarmey to the show with KickHouse. And what's funny is we joked about not stumbling over her last name right before this, and I'm an imperfect person, so we're just going to keep recording. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Kevin. And it's totally fine for you to stumble so that when I stumble down the road, we're just going to go with that one also.
We're just going to stumble.
Exactly.
So you're in Dallas, which we were talking about is a phenomenal place to launch a new concept just because of the economic environment, just so much. I mean, there's disposable income and so many awesome things. Let's talk about what KickHouse is, because on the outside, it can mean a variety of things. So what is the service that you guys provide to your customers when they come into a KickHouse location?
KickHouse is a modern kickboxing studio franchise, and you can go do boxing anywhere. You can really find martial arts and kickboxing anywhere. But what KickHouse does differently and does really well is create a space that is welcoming and accessible and approachable to anyone, regardless of your gender, regardless of your fitness level. We really try to appeal to a really broad market, and it's not a place where you need to already be fit in order to come in and get more fit. It's really meant for anyone and everyone. I like to tell my team, like, we are marketing to your moms. Like, we have to make it mom friendly. And if we can be there, that's really where we can really make a big impact in the health and wellness of our communities.
I love that. It's almost like the Planet Fitness model. They've deliberately said, it's actually like my smoothie shop too. Like, we're like, hey, we cater to just people who are trying to make better decisions. It could be somebody who's 80 years old and deciding they want more longevity, or they want to take, account of their health and their well-being. Or it could be somebody who's severely overweight and self-conscious about going into some place where it could be intimidating. Like if you were to walk into a martial arts place, you might not feel like you belong there. So I love that sense of belonging and making it so that it's accessible to everybody.
Yeah, there's way too many people out there who still do no form of physical exercise on a consistent basis. So we want to be approachable to those people on the couch, and we don't have mirrors set up in the studio. So it's not an environment where it's self-conscious. It's meant to be that fun workout that people want to come back for. It's meant to be that stress relief workout. So you're going to feel good after workout number one. And then that be the step that gets them on the path, that gets them to a more consistent physical activity regimen.
I love it. And I will tell people right now, if you don't believe what Jessica just said about feeling better. I'm a martial artist. Most listeners who are regular listeners probably know that. And I will tell you, when I go to sparring class on Saturdays and you're just, you're punching stuff or whatever, it is this endorphin rush that is unmatched in other exercises. It's fun. It's rewarding. It's hard. But when you're done, you just feel so amazing. Like, it feels good to hit stuff. It just does. Everyone, if somebody's holding pads or whatever, like, it's a rewarding thing. It gives you confidence, and you're able to carry that through, your everyday life, other aspects of your life.
Yeah. As a leader of a franchise organization, I carry a lot of stress and anxiety in my own world.
You need to punch stuff, right?
Exactly. So I have the outlet. I kind of built my own outlet for my own stress and anxiety.
I love it. It's kind of like, my wife takes yoga and practices yoga. And during the pandemic, she didn't as much because her yoga studio shut down. And we would always joke. I'm like, yoga keeps my wife from abusing me and battering me at home. Like, it makes it so that she doesn't want to punch me as much, because when you're able to go invest in yourself and whatever it is, like my headline for anybody listening, sure, try kickboxing, try martial arts, try yoga, do something for yourself, because you are going to make it so that you're better of service to your family, your community. If you have employees, coworkers, whatever, it's just going to make you a better, more rounded individual. But there's a lot to be said about letting out, your energy in a positive way.
Yeah. And that's definitely what the last 2 years have taught us also, is it's not just about looking good in a bathing suit. It's about holistic health. It's about our mental health. It's about do we have the confidence and the, resilience in our own, worlds to go through something like a pandemic, to go through something where there's changes, there's uncertainty. You need that outlet. You need that like mental strength to just power through your days, really.
That's right. At the end of the day, that's really all we have. I think a lot of us get into this rut, if you have family and jobs and all these things. And I did that with myself when I became a dad 11 years ago. Like I did a half Ironman right when my son was like 6 months old, and then just put myself on the back burner in the name of everything else. And it's really hard to bring the best to everything else if you're not taking care of yourself. So I'm super thankful that you started this business. I want to talk about when you started this business, because we talked about that pandemic, and you opened in July of 2020. And I'm thinking back what was happening in July of 2020. If I look back, I remember there were, I don't drink, but my neighbors do. And maybe drinks were getting opened at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon versus 7 p.m. We're really just kind of coming out of this thing. It's a weird time. And you decide you're going to start a business. What's going on? What happened in July of 2020? You're like, let's go.
I think the pandemic created an interesting opportunity for people with entrepreneurial minds and entrepreneurial thinking processes, where most people were maybe waiting for the return to normal. I think those with entrepreneurial angles really were seeing the environmental shifts and knowing that those environmental shifts would open up unique opportunities. So Warren Buffett says, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. And as the world was exiting brick and mortar boutique fitness, I decided that was the time to enter the space and to put together this offering that is now KickHouse.
KickHouse is kick ass. I mean, just running into the fire in July of 2020.
That is our vibe. That is our, that's part of our culture, like resilience, excellence, kind of going against the grain, maybe being okay with breaking out of traditional playbooks, breaking out of traditional business models, and really looking at really anything and any way to thrive through a difficult time, and collaborating while doing so. And that's why we're still in the game at this point.
I love it. And by the way, kind of a sidebar, but I love your branding. I think that your branding is like super on point for what you do. It's just like very dialed in for folks who aren't, maybe watch, or I guess they wouldn't see it even if they're watching, but it's just really crisp, black, white, stands out. And one of those things that I would be drawn to if I was driving by, I'd be like, hey, what is that? Like KickHouse. Yeah.
So my background is marketing and branding. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that compliment, Kevin. But I'll give the 5-second kind of tips and tricks for branding. It does have to be simple, because simple will be memorable. You don't need to have all aspects dialed in day one in order to launch, but you do have to have clarity and then consistency around what it is. And then you need to start to repeat it as much as possible. And I say to my creative team all the time, like, you guys need to be sick of this. We need to say it so much. We need to put it everywhere. It needs to be on apparel. It needs to be on glassware. It needs to be on bags. It needs to be everywhere. And it just needs to be rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, because you're trying to build awareness as fast as you can. And so for me, choosing the name KickHouse, I knew I was in a crowded space. I knew the kickboxing element was a differentiating element versus the boxing space. So I knew the kick needed to be in there, and I knew I wanted it to be a warm and welcoming place. So I wanted it to feel like home for people. So that's the house.
I like that. The house part is like, hey, this is your safe sanctuary place to come work on yourself. I like that.
Exactly. But everything speaks when you're building a brand. So the colors you choose, the words you choose, the tagline you choose, everything has to ladder up to like what you're trying to do overall. And I think we have created that foundation, and we created that foundation very early, which I think did help us grow and helped us gain a lot of momentum for our brand really early on.
Beautiful. What were you doing before you started this?
So I was chief marketing officer at Club Pilates. I started there at 200 locations and grew it to 650 locations in 3 countries. And I think that's, partly where the passion for consistency within franchising came from. A lot of my job was simply keeping people aligned and being the leader of the brand and the leader of the direction, consistently like promoting and protecting what the brand was. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to franchise your business, especially internationally, your brand is one of the elements that you are offering as a value to your franchisees. So it better be good and it better be consistent, and there better be processes to ensure that consistency and ensure that anyone who goes off script can come, you can rein them back in and get everybody back on track in the same direction.
You and I are going to have a different episode. It's going to be franchisor CMO war stories.
I will talk about that for hours. So
we're always kind of seeing, so Jessica and I have both been CMOs of fast growing franchises globally, and we both had to be kind of the brand police. The fun sponge is what I've been called, like a variety of different things. But the headline for Franchise Wars listing is that is one of those things that is challenging. If you haven't watched The Founder with Michael Keaton about McDonald's, you'll see that some of those first locations started going way off the script. Back when McDonald's started franchising. And that is one of the challenges is brand compliance, just compliance overall is challenging the bigger that you get. So
my thoughts there would be, it is so challenging to work in marketing in the franchising space, but I love it because if you are smart and persuasive as a marketer and you can stay 3 steps ahead, your franchisees who are smart will follow your lead. But it requires you to constantly be building and constantly answer for something that might not even exist yet as a problem.
Right.
But you have to see that problem happening and fill that void before the franchisees see it. Because as soon as they see it, they will try to fill it on their own. So it's consistently a game, not of cat and mouse. It's a game of like, you are running out in front. And as long as you stay in the front, you are going to succeed like vastly in the franchise marketing space. Right. As soon as you are in a reactive seat and chasing requests and chasing your tail on like answering to franchise owners, like that's where it starts to fall apart. But it's such a unique skill set because you need that persuasion. You need that ability to proactively build. And then you also need to be able to like reactively respond to things and be a customer service agent at the same time.
Yeah. I think being the CMO is actually like, I don't know why, but my last company, like it was this cool relationship building place as well. Like some of my best friends are still some of my franchisees, and I haven't worked with them for 8 years now, but they're still some of the dearest people in the world because and most of them were in the top 25. I'll just share that as well. They were the top performers and they, utilized the system as we built it and bought in and we're all in. And then I was able to work with those folks to make things better as well, because they would sometimes see things that we didn't necessarily see at the home office. And some of our best ideas came from our franchisees. I mean, we actually created a franchise brand based on a suggestion of a franchisee. So listening to them is important. Being chased after them all the time is not so fun.
It's all about that partnership element, though. And especially for new franchisors who are starting out, you need to choose your initial franchisees knowing that they're going to be in that partnership seat. And the more vocal they are, the more you're going to be able to learn fast, build fast, and grow fast. And I think a lot of franchisors see it opposite. But you want your franchisees to be loud. You want them to be collaborative. You want them to be part of the process. And one of the things that's magical about KickHouse, because we started when we started, and it was a fight daily, to like stay in the fitness game. Right. My franchise owners consistently raise their hand and say like, what about this? What about this? I can help with this. And it's not just pointing out, hey, Jessica, you need to do this better, but like, let me build it with you. Like, let's go. And we have that collaboration piece to our culture because of necessity and just because of when we launched and just needing all hands on deck and needing to pull every single lever that we could to help it grow. And we're doing that to this day. So we're 2.5 years in, we're still building, still improving. And it's not just coming from my team. My team centrally is 6 people. We're really lean.
You are.
So it requires collaboration out to the studio level in order to get as much done as we need to get done.
Yeah. Amen. So let's talk about, you start franchise. So you opened in July of 2020. How many company-owned locations did you open? We really opened 0. We kind of 0. So your very first location that opened was a franchise. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So I think going back to like the traditional playbooks and understanding it was a non-traditional time, we looked at it as like you could either run that exact play, like open 3 corporate owned locations and then prove them out. And 5 years later, start to franchise. But I'm 2.5 years in now and I have 25 locations open, all franchise owned. So I think there's like franchising is a very traditional business model. It has a lot of precedent attached to it. It has a lot just different ways that like throughout time things have been done. And going into this, venture during the pandemic, it really kind of opened up an opportunity to say, you know what, like there's probably a different way to pursue this that would help us grow even faster. So, I think even coming from an exponential background where it is 100% franchise owned, in the Club Pilates system and in the other brands that they have, the 100% franchise model is kind of an evolution. It didn't used to be that way. And then it kind of evolved as like, why run corporate owned locations when you can have just full expertise in that support function? And that's really like how they have grown as quickly as they've grown. So I really am passionate about trying to continue to evolve the franchise model. And some of the things that I think are very reasonable, or even lessons that we can learn from the real estate space and understanding how real estate wholesales like deals together, like investors, they package investors with properties and then they sell it together. That's very reasonable and doable in the franchising world. And it would allow younger franchise owners to get into the space. Diversity and inclusion is big in our world, especially being like a female run and a female supported company. And there's no reason why there shouldn't be more females in franchising. Right now, it's 30% of franchises are run by females. It should be easily 50-50, if not more so, because of the flexibility of the business model. Same thing with Blacks and underrepresented populations. Like franchising is a amazing way to dip your toe into entrepreneurship
And it hasn't historically been accessible to those populations because of how it's been taught via, let's say, via an old boys network. And it doesn't need to be that way. And as much as I still feel like I have a lot to learn, I know I need to at least do my part to pass along what I've learned so far. So that's really what I'm trying to lean into personally and professionally this next year.
I love it. I also love the fact that you built the business model to franchise, like just straight from the get-go. Because you're right, a lot of people fall into it. I always say the baker makes amazing cookies and then all of a sudden has this decision point of going from one location that they own to two, or they can look at, taking the franchise route. And so very few people have that intent at the very beginning. And they're like, hey, I'm going to just build this to franchise it. But it does make things so much easier if you build it like that at the beginning, right? It's intentional, and especially if you have the experience, you've been through it before.
Yeah, I started in the franchising space in 2008. And so that's the other thing that's funny is, 2020 comes along and it's the pandemic. And I had 8 years of experience in fitness, almost 20 years of experience in franchising. And so it wasn't risky to me.
Yeah. You're like, hey, this is obvious. This is obvious. Like I'm ready. My training has kicked in.
Exactly. And so it was from the beginning, to your point, it was like from the get-go, this is going to be a franchise. And again, I know that there's ways and audiences that need to be exposed to the franchise opportunity that haven't been. And so that's that's really like how we're trying to grow, is really just be true to us. We have a lot of female owners in our family already. We aggressively recruit new female entrepreneur owners.
That's awesome.
Because it's, a female coming into a big brand with male leadership. And that's a lot of the brands that are on the Franchise 500 and on the fastest growing list. And I know it's my responsibility, again, to show up and just represent that this is possible, even to business owners who are contemplating franchising their business. It is scary when you don't know what to do. And I love de-risking it by having really approachable and reasonable and clear conversations with people. Like, here's how you can do this. It's doable. It's overcomplicated because of maybe historical practices. Yeah,
legacy stuff, right? No, I love that. I love it. I especially love it for my 8-year-old daughter. Because, as an entrepreneur, I hope my kids go do whatever they want to do. But in the back of my mind, I hope that maybe they fall into business ownership. And you're exactly right. Like as a dad, as a girl dad, I think about the things that even my wife has to encounter in professional environments, I hear about them. And I'm like, man, like this is such a great time, particularly for females, for any minorities, because there is, like, we have a DEI board now with my Chamber of Commerce. We didn't have that 2 years ago. So there's like so much emphasis put on inclusion and making a level playing field for folks. And then it takes people like you to lead that effort, because you can put policies in place and words on them. But when somebody actually walks the walk and then leads their organization that way, I think that's super, super cool. So thank you for doing that.
Well, people ask me, like, isn't it challenging to be a female entrepreneur in a male-dominated business model of franchising, in a male-dominated industry of fitness? And I just kind of laugh, because I feel like it's our superpower. Because I feel like as a female who's been in fitness, I know how difficult it is to take that first step into a gym. As a female in franchising, I know that it's about people and it's about relationships and it's about collaboration. And do I feel like I would put myself and my team up against any franchisor support team in any, industry across the country? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
And it's because they approach it from a collaboration perspective, and they approach it from let's build this together. And it's not an us versus them. It is like a family. And we, go through those highs and lows together. But I mean, that's inherently a more feminine approach to franchising. And so, again, knowing your audience, like if you're a business owner who's listening to this and you're a female and you're like, I can't do franchising because it's just such this male dominated space. Yeah, it is. But that's what's going to make you different. And that's what's going to help you succeed. So always in whatever you do, be you. But know that it really can be that unlock that helps your franchise do amazing things, is just because of that, like that difference.
I love it. That's awesome. That is awesome. This has been a really, really fun conversation, and definitely not where I expected it to go. Like I've learned a lot here. I've gotten a lot of energy out of this. If people want to learn more about what you're up to at KickHouse, like what's the best way for them to go get more information?
Well, they can follow KickHouse anywhere on any social channel at either KickHouse or the KickHouse. My social channels are all under my full name at Jessica Yarmey. And you can give your daughter my email and phone. Tell her to call me. I'll hook it up when she's ready to do business.
Be careful, because she's on Messenger now and she's always chatting with her friends, and be careful because she might just dive into that. She's really into making money right now, which is really
there
cool.
You go. I don't have a Discord. Like the kids are all on Discord. I'm not on Discord, but
you're not one of the cool kids yet.
But I'm on TikTok. So tell her to find me on TikTok.
I'm on TikTok as well.
There you go. We're now going to be mutuals.
We're TikTokers, assuming they don't ban it here in the United States. Jessica, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I love how you're building your company. Like, it's intentional. You're bringing, all of your experience to the business and to the team and to your franchisees and leading with integrity, and that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's what we're going for. Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's conversation with Jessica, maybe you have a strong female in your life who has been thinking about taking that leap into entrepreneurship or franchising, and they're just stuck. Go ahead and share this episode with them right now. Just text it to them. Real super simple. My second ask is, if you like what we're doing at Franchise My Business, please go ahead and subscribe on the platform you're listening to now. Until next time, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham. Have a phenomenal day. Be well, and we'll catch you soon.